6 days. That is all it took to turn the center of Europe into a slaughterhouse. It is Wednesday, September 6th, 1939. The Polish army is reeling on the borders, but today the war shifts its focus. It stops being a battle for territory and becomes a battle for survival. Today, Poland's capital becomes the center of the storm. The true Siege of Warsaw begins, and the world witnesses a new, terrifying kind of warfare. Up until yesterday, the German Luftwaffe had focused on military targets like airfields and rail lines. But on September 6th, the strategy changes. The gloves come off. The goal is no longer just to cripple the Polish military, it is to break the Polish soul. Warsaw is subjected to the first massive coordinated terror bombing of the war. Imagine the sound. It isn't just explosions, it is the terrifying high-pitched scream of the Jericho trumpets, sirens attached to the German Stuka dive bombers designed solely to paralyze people with fear before the bombs even release. German pilots, flying unopposed, begin to target the city's utilities. Water mains burst and gas pipes rupture, feeding fires that begin to eat whole city blocks. The human disaster is immediate. Hospitals are overwhelmed. There are no documented numbers for the dead on this specific day because the people whose job it was to count them are themselves running for cover. The first true war crimes of the air war are being committed as residential areas with no military value are turned to ash. While the bombs fall, a different kind of disaster unfolds in the halls of power. Realizing the German armored spearheads are unstoppably driving toward the capital, the Polish government makes a fateful decision. On the afternoon of September 6th, the president and the high command pack their bags. They order an evacuation to the east. To the average citizen of Warsaw, watching their leaders speed away in limousines while they are left with shovels to dig trenches, it feels like abandonment. The morale of the city threatens to collapse completely. But history is strange. In the vacuum of power, heroism emerges from unexpected places. As the generals flee, the civilian mayor of Warsaw, Stefan Starzyński, steps up. He refuses to leave. He goes to the radio station, which is miraculously still broadcasting despite the bombing. His voice becomes the anchor of the city. He calls not for evacuation, but for defense. He turns ordinary shopkeepers and teachers into the city's last line of defense, telling them Warsaw is fighting. Warsaw will not surrender. But the horror of September 6th is not confined to the city limits. The German strategy relies on speed, and to ensure their tanks face no resistance, they need chaos. They need to clog the roads so the Polish army cannot reinforce its lines. They achieve this through calculated barbarity. Across western Poland, hundreds of thousands of civilians take to the roads, fleeing the advancing Wehrmacht. Luftwaffe pilots are ordered to strafe these refugee columns. These are the undocumented stories of Day 6, the stories that don't make the military reports. A mother covering her child in a roadside ditch as cannon shells tear up the earth around them. A farmer's horse cart carrying everything his family owns, splintered by machine gun fire. It is mass murder disguised as military strategy. The goal is panic, and it works. The roads of Poland become rivers of sorrow, choked with the dead and the terrified living. And what of the world? What of Poland's great allies, Britain and France, who declared war 3 days ago? While Warsaw burns, the Western Front is eerily quiet. On September 6th, French troops tentatively cross the border into Germany. They advance a few miles, encounter almost no resistance, and occupy a few evacuated villages. The French have the overwhelming military advantage on the western borders as Germany has stripped the West bare to throw everything at Poland. A massive, determined French offensive on this day could have forced Hitler to turn his tanks around. It could have saved Warsaw. But the order does not come. The French advance is timid and hesitant. This is the beginning of what history will call the Phoney War, a war of words in the West while the East drowns in blood. The betrayal felt by the Poles is not just paranoid, it is real. As night falls on September 6, 1939, the 6th day of the war comes to a close. The Polish government is in flight.
The roads are littered with civilian dead, and Warsaw is surrounded by a ring of fire, abandoned by its allies, defended only by the sheer stubbornness of its people. In Berlin, Hitler boasts to his generals of a swift, total victory. He believes the war is practically over. But in the cellars of Warsaw, as the bombs continue to fall, the Polish spirit hardens. They are outnumbered, they are outgunned, but they are not broken. Poland bleeds, but it does not surrender. But the Poles are looking west for help that will not come. They should be looking east. Tomorrow, the Soviet Union watches from the sidelines, calculating and waiting for their moment to strike the final blow.